Hi, Jennifer with Porcelynne here, and we are finishing the Jackie sports bra today. This is video 9, so this is the last one in the series. Of course, if you're not completely caught up, go back and watch anything you need to watch. And today we're going to be finishing up by closing it completely, so we can't get into it, we can't make any more changes, and then we're going to be adding a ring or a slide to the front to attach the strap to. Just a few more steps and we're almost ready to close it up. Now we do need to put the elastic in, so because we still have this open, we still have the two ends open. I'm actually going to, we want to look at this, so open up your band, and if you want we can even turn this right side out, or inside out rather. So we have only a few more steps left to do. We do need to add the elastic. But we also need to close up one side of the center front. So we have kind of, we can finish the waistband on one side. And we'll end up doing a top stitch on the last piece that we have to do, which is on the center front where the eyes are. But we're going to close up the side with the hooks. So all we really have to do, we've already got that neckline stitched, and everything kind of lines up right here. And actually, I keep saying I'm going to cut off that stabilizer, and I need to probably do that at this point. Yeah. Or at least move that back. Okay. And all we have to do is line our edges up again. So just edge to edge, ignore any. So if you have a stabilizer there, we're ignoring that stabilizer and we're just lining up the edges together. You're like, well, what about the elastic? Well, we'll get to the elastic. Now we want to make sure, and this is where we should line up, is double check that right where the band starts, that lines up. So that's an important placement because it could make the elastic kind of not lay right. Oh, stupid thing. I can't go through. Okay. And then everything else should go in. Okay. And I'm just going to take this and stitch it all the way down to the bottom of this fold. And I'm going to do this with the straight stitch just because we have the zipper down here, so we got to be really careful with how we're doing that. Get your zipper foot out, kind of what we had to do to attach those pieces in the first place. And I can feel that the hooks are facing down, so I will likely do it this direction and try and get everything lined up. So I'm going to stitch it on this direction, try and get as close there, and then I'm going to pull it, and actually then we're going to attach the elastic. So these are just a bunch of little stitches, and it doesn't really make sense. I think it's easier for you to see it with me explaining it on the table. Okay, so we have this side, we have sealed this one shut. Now before we add the elastic, because once we kind of seal the whole thing up, it's kind of hard to go back in. So I'm just going to pull out the center front so I can kind of look at it and pull that zipper out and make sure that everything is looking good. And I would say, yes, that's looking good. I got a little pleat up there at the top, but that's going to be kind of hidden underneath that placket. So to me, that looks really good. We've got our hooks in there. So I'm actually going to pull that right back inside out so we can then add our elastic. Now the elastic you're given, there is a chart with the length that you need based on the size. So, oh, where's the band? Okay, what am I looking at? Okay, so I'm looking at the lining side and the waistband. So we want to have the elastic, we want to attach the elastic here and all the way at the other side too. And if we were to sew it kind of with that seam allowance, it would fold back and it would be extra bulky here with that elastic. So what we want to do is we actually just want to sew it right to that seam allowance. Excuse me. Now, right now, if we were to sew it like this, you can feel that there's some lumpiness in here, and that's really up to you. If you want it to be a little bit smoother right there, then I would probably say tuck it underneath that seam allowance right to the edge, and then you can stitch this to the seam allowance. Now, because I think it'll be easier for you to see what I'm doing if I actually sew it to this outside of the seam allowance, I'm just going to pin it right here. And so this should, you can see that should end up going right up to that edge of where that is. Okay, without twisting the elastic, come all the way to the other end. And you can see here, we kind of do the same thing. We pull that elastic back, right? So we can then stitch. So we're pulling that waistband back and sewing it to the seam allowance. So I'm gonna do that here. Remember, you can do this underneath as well. And actually, let me move that up just a hair. And then I'm going to go and straight stitch these, back stitch both ends. We are going to tack it in on the side seams as well, but we want to get this end secure so it's not going to come out. So I'm going to go stitch this and then I'll be right back. Crossing my fingers that I didn't twist it. Looks good. Okay, now what I'm going to do is I am going to work on closing this waistband. So I'm basically going to put this, kind of get that in there. So remember, that should be right there. Line up my seam allowance. Remember, we had offset our seam allowance on the band, so you need to make sure that you have the actual seam line lining up. And we're going to pin this whole thing in place. And the last thing we're going to do is we're going to close up that other side of the front. Now we're here, we want to make sure that we get that seam lined up. And it's okay if we end up catching the elastic in this, because that'll actually just mean it won't turn at all. But I'm trying to push the elastic down inside, so I've got it within that band. And then so pull that out so you can see. And you're going to try and pin it as close as you can to kind of where all this stuff's going on. Which is about where this seam is. So if you're curious as what it's going to look like, hey, look, I've got a finished band. It's all secured in there. So now what I'm going to do is I'm not going to do this with the overlock. Yes, I could, but it gets just more and more bulky. You're better off just zigzagging these two together. And that way it kind of keeps its shape. So I'm going to zigzag. I'm going to try and connect it from all the way at this seam all the way to this seam, and then pull it right side out, and then the last, well, it's still two more steps. We got to close here and we got to put the rings on. Yep. And smaller stitch, yeah. So that way your seam allowances are attached and you have the ability to let stretch in there. To the side. There we go. Okay, clip the rest of your threads. If you have anything kind of loose, because this will be the last time we're looking at the inside of the garment. So I put a few things in here, a few things in my neckline. Because I know it's so annoying when you've got something finished and then you end up finding that you've enclosed some weird thread that is visible on the outside of the garment. So, I need to sharpen those two. Okay. Okay, moment of truth. Pull it right side out. Should be no pins. Make sure all pins are gone. Looking beautiful over here. Oh, got a weird thread hanging. Okay, so now we're back over here. And now we really just want to take and kind of line up our seams. And all we have to do is do a stitch in the ditch, cover it all up. So close that. And then we're going to come down here and just stitch over here. So it's nice and evenly spaced. As I'm sewing, we're going to sew part and then pull back up. So I'm going to stitch right in the ditch, right in here, right on here. So you might want to try and do this with a regular stitch, with regular thread that would match. I'm just doing mine in black, so you'll be able to see if I make any mess ups on it. And then I'll finish that stitch. We'll come back, and then we just have to basically put the ring on. So we're going to put the ring here and close that up, and it's all done. We now are on the very, very last step. Yay! Oops, still got some threads in here hanging. So I'm going to take my strap, and I've got my ring, and I'm basically going to take, and that ring, this has to go through that ring. And then we got to stitch it down. Now in the video that I'm about ready to show you, I actually did it with a slide. You can do it with a slide, but I did discover that the narrower width up here and the wider slide down here causes the slide to kind of shift off at an angle. So I'm just switching that one out for the ring. You'll see, or you saw in the intro video, that I actually discussed changing this for the size of the elastic that you're going to do. This obviously is done kind of in a slightly different order, but we're going to put this, so get that ring down, because for an elastic that's this narrow, we actually don't want a strap that's this thick, so we would actually make it a little bit smaller. But that would be in that intro video, so I'm going to get this pinned. I'll show you that clip on sewing that, and then I will be back with this one finished. So ideally we'll do it on the front side so we can actually see what we're doing. We also need to make sure that we are going to get as close as possible. So we need a zipper foot or some type of edge foot. This I can get away with my zipper foot as my zipper foot because it's I don't know where it is, honestly. I've got a big drawer full of feet and I can't really find it. So I've got it folded over. I'm going to set this in here, so this is going to sit, the foot's going to sit right next to the slide. Do back stitch to the end. Okay, hold that together. Okay, that side is complete, and this side. I'm going to finish up at the table. So, the very last step to do is to close this up and see your finished work. So we have our hooks and our eyes, and so the hooks are designed to help you hold it all in. And with someone who might be a little bit fuller, like myself, I still found it very difficult to try and hook this, but I usually don't wear things that close in the front, but I know some people prefer that. Get the zipper down to the bottom, get that piece in. Come on, you can do it, you can do it. There it is. Get that, oh, you slid out on me. Nope, come on. Zipper all the way down. Get that closed. And there we go. Your zip front sports bra is complete, along with your cool adjustable strap. So we can make it a little longer, we can make it a little shorter. And there you go. And yes, this is a pretty ugly sewing job, but you're not looking at that. You're looking at the rest of it. Thank you for watching, and feel free to watch any of these videos again to walk you through the construction. And this is part of my interchangeable series, so you can actually interchange these patterns with any pieces of the Laurel or the Christina.